there. Welcome into Fantasy Baseball today on Thursday, July 24th. I am Frank Stampfl, joined by Scott White and Chris Towers. Today on the show, we got huge starts from Nick Lodolo and Tyler Glasnow. What has happened to these four players? Plus, a fun night for the White Sox future. Colson Montgomery and Kyle Teel having big games there as well. Chris, long time no see. Boots on the ground, we were. Mets and Angels in Citi Field on Wednesday. Good times. Good times.
Yeah, it was nice to hang out. We hung out with a couple other fantasy baseball people and saw a Pete Alonso bomb and a Mike Trout bomb. We saw some bombs.
It was a good day. We got to see Scott's guy, Sean Manaea, first win of the season. How about that?
Yeah.
Although, I don't know.
2 miles per hour slower.
Yeah,
his velocity down a little bit.
Command was a little shaky.
Yeah. We'll see. We'll talk about that. Shout out to the guys. It always is a good time seeing other people in the industry, of course. Rick Wolf, Steve Gardner, Nick Pollock, Adam Ronis. Always good catching up and obviously
Eric Samulski.
Yes, of course.
He made an appearance.
Great times had by all, but let's get into the players of the night.
In a year that has been so improbable, the impossible has happened.
All right, Scott, we will start with you. The old twofer. Two for one.
All right, let's start with Nick Lodolo. Complete game shutout. Yes, I know a shutout by definition is a complete game, but sometimes people talk loosely and say shutout without meaning that. So I like to specify complete game shutout. It still
says CGSO.
Yeah.
In your programs.
Yes. Anyway, 9 shutout innings against the Nationals, walked nobody, which is kind of a recurring theme with Nick Lodolo. Struck out 8. A really good start in a string of really good starts, and what's shaping up to be a really good year for Nick Lodolo. Surprisingly, I would say, because it certainly doesn't look like the Nick Lodolo. In many ways, it doesn't look like the Nick Lodolo we got so excited about in the past, the one who couldn't stay healthy. His curveball hasn't been it's been fine, but he's not missing bats at nearly the rate that past Nick Lodolo did. There's nothing special there in the batted ball profile. He doesn't allow especially hard contact, but it's not really weak contact either. Not extreme fly ball or ground ball. The one thing where Nick Lodolo really does stand out, and more so in past years, is strike throwing. Like I mentioned, no walks in this complete game effort, and his control has been elite. It's been elite. Whether you're looking at strike percentage, best of his career, or certainly walk rate, it's been great. And that whole profile for Nick Lodolo reminds me a lot of what we're seeing from Matthew Boyd this year. Matthew Boyd, another pitcher who I keep expecting to fall off, and he just seems to keep getting better and better, even though there's not a lot in the data beyond an elite control that leads you to believe this guy should be anything special. And so, they're both left-handers, which it tends to be preferable to right-handers. Left-handers have a higher margin for error, I guess I'd say, than right-handers do. So that probably helps. But I'm getting the sense this year that with less damage being done on contact, there's a lot of value to a pitcher just throwing a ton of strikes, to just not beating himself with walks, especially if he's left-handed. And so that brings us to the other one I wanted to talk about here from Wednesday, Brandon Walter. It's less known than Boyd and certainly Nick Lodolo, but he's kind of fitting the same profile here, a left-hander who doesn't allow the weakest contact in the world, doesn't have an extreme batted ball profile, but terrific control. And I'll note all three of these guys, Boyd, Lodolo, Walter, they're not huge bat missers, but they get strikeouts at a decent enough clip, I think.
About average on all three, yeah.
So
Walter actually has been significantly above average so far. He's at like 25%.
Okay. But it's less than a strikeout per inning, right?
It might be, yeah.
8.7.
Yeah. So he kind of fits the mold of the pitcher that we're seeing exceed expectations this year. And he did it again at the Diamondbacks here on Wednesday night. 7 innings, 1 run allowed, just 1 walk, of course, 5 strikeouts. That's 6 of 9 starts now. 9 starts Walter's had in the majors this year. 6 of them, 6 innings or more, 2 earned runs or fewer. You know, I think there's a lot to like here. I think maybe by traditional analytic standards, Walter would slip through the cracks. I mean, he's been kind of a minor league journeyman. He's on the older side. His stuff at first glance, doesn't blow you away, but he fits the mold of pitchers that are succeeding in this environment. And so I think it's worth gambling on at this point. It's not an open and shut case, but I definitely see the upside for Brandon Walter.
Brandon Walter up to 46% rostered, which might not sound like much, but he is the most added pitcher on CBS right now. He jumped from 26% all the way up to 46% rostered in the past week or so.
And he's a 2-star pitcher next week.
Yeah, and he's also just pitching really well. Yeah. So I totally get why he's being added, and I think he needs to continue to be added the way that he's pitching. And the team that he pitches for, right? The Astros do great work with their pitchers, pretty good offensive run support there, good bullpen as well. So everything kind of lines up for Brandon Walter just being a fantasy relevant pitcher. So if he's available in your league, I would change that.
And one last note in case somebody wanted to dig into those numbers further, he is actually allowing weaker contact and a higher ground ball rate than Lodolo or Matthew Boyd. So it's not a perfect analog, but if you were skeptical of how he's doing in those areas, like just the fact that he's a left-hander who misses bats at an okay clip and has elite control, I think are strong enough selling points on their own.
And it's made all the more impressive by the fact that he missed all of last season with a rotator cuff injury. He hasn't pitched since 2023, and he's doing this. So it's really impressive.
Walter, you're talking about?
Yeah, Brandon Walter. I do want to. Lodolo is just weird. It's just weird what he's doing this season because his chase rate is actually up from last year, which generally we associate with more strikeouts and more swings and misses. Well, he's giving up. His contact rates on both pitches in and out of the strike zone are higher than they've ever been. And as a consequence, his whiff rate is way lower than it's ever been. But he's managing to make it work because if you can get swings on pitches out of the strike zone, even if you're not missing bats, you're going to tend to generate weak contact. So that probably explains at least some of it. I will say Lodolo has a 3.95 xERA. The worse than last year at least, and I generally think he's a sell high candidate, but I've been saying that for a while, and outside of a rough June, it hasn't really come to fruition yet. So, just making me look dumb.
Just getting back to Brandon Walter for a second, I know Quinn Priester, who we'll talk about, another strong start here, feels like he's at the top of the list of waiver wire pitchers lately. He's all the way up to 80% rostered. Edward Cabrera, who we spoke about yesterday, I feel like he's just behind Quinn Priester. Then we get into, kind of interesting guys, Emmett Sheehan and Zebby Matthews, and maybe Cam Schlittler, guys like that. Scott, would you take Brandon Walter ahead of the 3 names I just mentioned? Would you go as far as to take him ahead of Edward Cabrera?
Well, he feels the most usable of them right now. If I wasn't desperate to fill a lineup spot with pitchers and I could afford to gamble a little more on upside, I'd probably opt for Zebby Matthews and Emmett Sheehan over Brandon Walter, but he's very much in the discussion. I think all 3 are far ahead of Cam Schlittler for me.
Okay. I agree with that. And there's a part of me that kind of believes more in Brandon Walter than Quinn Priester. I'm not exactly sure what it is. I've been struggling with the Quinn Priester thing because, I think him and Edward Cabrera kind of turned their seasons around at the same time. And in some ways, Priester's been more impressive because he's gone deeper into games more consistently. But with Cabrera, I think there's a little more... there are a few more things that you can point to as to how he's turned his season around. Like, he's changed his pitch mix. He's ditched that. He's throwing the sinker a lot more than the 4-seamer now. Quinn Priester, his pitch mix is basically identical to what it was in the early season, and he's just pitching a lot better, and that somehow feels less sustainable. I don't know if that makes sense. And whereas Walter, maybe it's just as simple as Walter wasn't in the majors and struggling early in the season, so we've only seen the good from him. But yeah, I find myself liking Brandon Walter quite a bit. It does also sort of feel like this is setting up for a disastrous 2-start week when everybody finally buys into him. But that's just vibes. That's just me being a fatalist.
So just to give the other side of the coin here, because I think I'm buying into Priester a little more than you are. If he had the innings to qualify, it would be the 5th highest ground ball rate. So he does have, he is elite in one area that we normally correlate with success. And while not every great ground ball pitcher is a good pitcher for fantasy, ones who strike out batters at what is he up to now? 7.6. That's actually not as good as I thought.
Over the course of the last 2 months, his K- walk rate is like 21%, which is a borderline elite mark. In addition to the elite ground ball rate.
Yeah,
it's just the first 2 months of the season, it was, or the first month and a half, it was 4% K- walk rate, which is on the complete other side of the spectrum.
So to put it another way, last 11 starts for Quinn Priester, which is really when he turned his season around, 8.7 K per nine. So that's what I was referring to. When you're an elite ground ball pitcher and you could strike out batters at that good of a rate, that's the Framber Valdez model for success, and that's how Priester's been going for the past 2.5 months now.
And Chris, I know you mentioned there wasn't something in particular that Priester changed with his pitch mix to kind of turn his season around, but he did add that cutter in this year, which by itself doesn't look like an amazing pitch, but maybe just having that pitch has kind of helped everything else play up. And
I think it's made his changeup last year wasn't great, so he's been able to get rid of that. He hasn't gotten rid of it, but he throws it a lot less. He doesn't throw the 4-seamer anymore. That wasn't a great pitch for him. So it could just be as simple as, and I guess we've just had the Quinn Priester discussion now, so we can take it off the rundown for later. It could just be as simple as it took him a couple months to figure out his new pitch mix, because like you said, he added the cutter, he's changed things around, took a few miles per hour off the slider as well to differentiate it more with the cutter. So it could just be that it took a month and a half to figure out and it's just locked in for him. It could also just be that he's on a 2-month hot stretch. You know?
That is entirely possible. I kind of just give the Brewers the benefit of the doubt right now, the way that they're playing and pitching as a team. So, I do think Priester's at the top of that list, and then we're probably, some combination of Edward Cabrera and Brandon Walter just behind him. Want to talk about Tyler Glasnow here, who had his best start of the season by far up against the Twins. 7 innings, 1 run, 12 strikeouts, just 1 walk. He had 19 whiffs on 106 pitches, and just a reminder, if we needed it, that Tyler Glasnow is still capable of a just monster start like this. In 3 outings since returning, it's 18 innings, just 9 hits allowed, 2 runs, with 23 strikeouts to just 5 walks. How long will it last? Nobody can answer that question. But as long as he's healthy,
it's going to be awesome.
We're probably looking at like a, I don't know, high-end SP2, something like that. I'm not going to rank him that way because there's a ton of risk, but he can be that good while he's healthy.
Absolutely. He's a top 12 starting pitcher if innings are equal. It's just innings are never equal for him.
I think we had that conversation a couple weeks ago, Chris, and we both said, if you told us Tyler Glasnow was making the same amount of starts as everybody else for the rest of the season, we'd rank him as a top 5 starting pitcher.
He's better than Yoshinobu Yamamoto. He's better than Framber Valdez. He's better than Logan Webb. It's just those guys are all a lot more projectable in terms of workload.
Right. So I don't know that there's anything actionable. I guess, if you want to try and sell high on Glasnow while he's healthy and you can get an awesome return, you can try that. But everyone else knows what they're dealing with when it comes to Tyler Glasnow. So my guess is just ride it out and continue to start him as long as he is healthy. Chris, I know you wanted to talk about Matt Shaw, but we'll get to him a little bit later on. I want to keep things moving here. Big thanks to those watching live right now. Make sure to hit the like button and subscribe on YouTube if you haven't already. Let's take a break, and we'll be back right after this.
Here we go. The 2025 CBS Sports NFL schedule is here. 18 glorious Sundays.
He's got his receiver touchdown.
Filled with rematches.
Oh, the play of the year.
And rivalries.
Touchdown, Bengals.
Plus, plenty of superstar showdowns. And an epic matchup between the Chiefs and Cowboys on Thanksgiving. Clear your Sundays beginning September 7th for the NFL on CBS and Paramount Plus.
Welcome back in Fantasy Baseball today. Let's hit the news and notes. Kyle Tucker was out of the lineup Wednesday. Craig Counsell said that he's banged up after fouling a ball off his right knee on Tuesday. Tucker is expected to return on Friday, hopefully. Bobby Witt Jr. said the knee injury he appeared to sustain on Tuesday is not a concern. His absence on Wednesday was more of a rest day. Okay, kind of convenient. We'll see on that one as well. Tarek Skubal was placed on the paternity list, but is expected to be activated in time to make his next start Saturday against the Blue Jays. Taj Bradley was sent down after an awful start on Wednesday night. He lasted just 1 2/3 innings against the White Sox, where he gave up 4 runs, 3 walks, 0 strikeouts. It's a 4.61 ERA. It's a 1.28 WHIP. Guys, is it Joe Boyle's season?
Presumably.
It's so funny because there was a lot of long faces when online. I didn't actually see the faces. I just saw the words, but there were I associated long faces with the words I was seeing.
Long avatars.
When the Rays
it wasn't
said
a
after
circle,
the
it was
break,
an oval.
Yeah, exactly. When the Rays, it was an egg. Remember the egg?
Oh, the egg.
Let me get to my point. When the Rays said that they were going to use Boyle as a long reliever coming out of the break, and people, I guess there's no reason to stash him anymore. He's just a reliever from now on, as if they've never seen a baseball game in their life and don't know how often pitcher injuries happen. Or in this case, it wasn't even an injury, obviously. It was just Taj Bradley had a stinker against the White Sox, and the Rays said, we can't have that. So they sent him down, and this creates the opening that strangely never developed for the first 4 months for Boyle to step into it. And yeah, he's made huge strides this year. I will, just one word of caution, obviously pick him up. There's a lot of strikeout upside. He was great in the minors. It looks like the Rays are doing their thing where they take a bad control guy and make him not so bad with control. In his 3 appearances since being called up, it is only a 59% strike rate, which is terrible and more reminiscent of pre-2025 Joe Boyle. So that does, make me a little uneasy, but it is also only 3 appearances. And again, this particular issue is the Rays' specialty, and Boyle seemed to overcome it in the minors. So, let's give him a full accounting and not just not rush to judgment with the strike throwing, especially since the Rays themselves, apparently with this decision to demote Taj Bradley, are encouraged by what they're seeing from Joe Boyle.
And Joe Boyle did throw 3 innings of relief here on Wednesday, so very easily lines up with Taj Bradley's spot, and I presume that he will just take Taj Bradley's spot in the rotation moving forward. Joe Boyle, 40% rostered on CBS. Where does he kind of fit into this mix? I assume he's behind Priester and Walter and Edward Cabrera. What about, Emmett Sheehan and Zebby Matthews and Cam Schlittler? Are you taking Joe Boyle over any of those?
I think he's right there with Sheehan and Zebby Matthews, because I think they're all 3 of those guys, and Schlittler to a slightly lesser degree. They're all still, I think, more like stashes than guys that you want to throw in your lineup. Whereas Priester, Walter, those guys look like just guys you want to start right now. And that could change with a couple more starts. But, Boyle, Sheehan, Zebby Matthews, they're all speculative ads at this point. We haven't actually seen it really at the major league level. We like the talent. If you told me Boyle was going to stick around in the rotation the rest of the season, I think he'd be potentially a top 60, top 50 starting pitcher, but that's sort of cheating, because if Joe Boyle sticks in the rotation the rest of the season, it probably means he's pitching pretty well. So that's kind of double counting, but I do think there's a ton of upside here.
Yeah. I don't think that's the extent of the upside for Boyle. I think, no. What's a good upside comp for Joe Boyle? It's not one coming to mind. Maybe like a right-handed Robbie Ray. Is that taking it too far?
It's kind of like the Dylan Cease model, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'd be tempted. I am kind of thinking along with the Rays here, and they haven't said Taj Bradley is down for any set amount of time. They haven't said for sure Joe Boyle's taking his spot. But if I'm reading into this what it looks like, and they have that much faith in Boyle, I'd be tempted to take him even over Brandon Walter, for as much as I was talking up Walter earlier in the show. Don't think I could do it over Priester or Edward Cabrera, but maybe over Walter, and I think definitely over Emmett Sheehan.
All right, Nathan Eovaldi will start for the Rangers Friday against the Braves. And speaking of the Rangers, they activated John Gray, planned to use him out of the bullpen, and he was thrown in there right away on Wednesday. He pitched 2 scoreless innings across the 6th, 7th, and 8th, and maybe works his way into, higher leverage situations, maybe save opportunities. This is something people kind of speculated about before the season as well, there with John Gray. Marcelo Meyer left Wednesday's game with right wrist discomfort. Dodgers and Max Muncy will travel to the team's spring training complex on Thursday to take live at bats for a few days. It's looking increasingly likely that he'll be back sooner than expected. Rehabbing pitcher updates. Hunter Green recorded 4 strikeouts over 2 scoreless innings in a rehab start at the Arizona Complex League. Bailey Ober will make another rehab start at AAA on Friday. Shane Bieber allowed 1 run while striking out 4 over 3 innings at High A. And Roki Sasaki threw a 39-pitch bullpen Wednesday and is on track to face hitters at the team's spring training complex next week. I believe Luis Gil also made a rehab start, and if I saw the line correctly, I didn't think it was a very good outing for him, but obviously the bigger thing is for him to just build up his pitches and make sure the velocity is okay, and that
I think it was down a little bit from what I saw.
Yeah, I didn't see the actual velocity, but I know there was a bunch of walks in there and stuff. So my guess is we probably get one more Luis Gil rehab start before he rejoins the Yankees. Matt Chapman left after getting hit by a pitch on his left elbow. X-rays came back negative. Marcell Ozuna has sat out 5 of the past 6 games, and there are some rumors that trade talks with the Padres have intensified there. So perhaps Ozuna will be on the move soon. Speaking of the Padres, apparently they are listening to offers on Dylan Cease, with the Yankees, Mets, Cubs, and Red Sox believed to have checked in. That comes according to John Heyman. David Festa was placed in the IL with right shoulder inflammation. Ryan Mountcastle will begin a rehab assignment at AAA on Thursday. He is not eligible for activation until July 30th. But in leagues with a corner infield spot, he's a name you can look to stash. Mountcastle only 16% rostered.
Yeah, and he was one of my second half sleepers. I just didn't want to gloss over that Dylan Cease thing. The Padres, who are very much in the Rays, in fact, if the season ended today, they'd be in the playoffs, are shopping their ace.
Well, he hasn't performed like one, so.
Still.
I mean, it's not like they have a lot of pitching depth either. Randy Vasquez is still in the rotation for them.
That's a bold move, Cotton. I kind of like it. I kind of like the fearlessness, and AJ Preller's always shown that fearlessness. I think it verges on recklessness too often, but if just the way I run my dynasty teams, I am often something of a seller even when I'm contending, and so I like that there is an opportunity for a real life GM to do that.
Dalton Varsho is on track to return to the Blue Jays next week, and he is 26% rostered. He hit 8 home runs in 24 games earlier this season. Low batting average, does have some pop, so a name for some deeper 5 outfielder leagues. The Cardinals DFA'd Eric Fedde and plan to keep Michael McGreevy in their rotation. Guardians prospect Chase DeLauder underwent surgery on Wednesday to address a hamate fracture in his right hand/wrist, and he is expected to miss 6 to 8 weeks before returning to game action. Might be the most unlucky prospect in terms of injuries that I have ever seen. Just one thing after another, a foot injury, now a hamate bone. It's Poor Chase DeLauder.
I mean, it's real like Grady Sizemore, Rocco Baldelli vibes, except those guys actually got to the majors before it happened.
It's true.
We told the Guardians they got to call him up while he's healthy because it won't be long. They didn't listen.
Speaking of prospects, by the way, Cardinals prospect J.J. Weatherholt is tearing up AAA. He had 2 home runs here on Wednesday. I don't know, Scott, maybe a September call-up and then like up on opening day next year, something like that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously he was just drafted last year, but he's already made it to AAA. Obviously he's performing there. It seems like he could be like if the Cardinals find a taker for Nolan Arenado, and I'm sure they'd love to find a taker for Nolan Arenado. I'm not sure how many people are asking, but I'm sure they'd love to find a taker. And I think, obviously he has to approve the deal. That was the problem this offseason. But if that happens, it seems like J.J. Weatherholt could be the biggest beneficiary. They slide Brendan Donovan over to third base, install Weatherholt at second. I don't know that it would happen on August 1st, but I think it very likely would happen by August 25th or whatever the cutoff is. And yeah, the rest may be history. Really good prospect there. I'm trying to remember exactly where I ranked him midseason top 50. I think it was like 5th or 6th. Really good.
That's the good news for the Cardinals. Now we're going to talk about some bad news, and it is time for, let me get it in front of me. Excuse me. Sorry. The Dog of the Week segment brought to you by Boehringer Ingelheim, the maker of NexGard Plus, afoxolaner, moxidectin, and pyrantel chewable tablets. Used with caution in dogs with a history of seizures or neurologic disorders. And ask your vet if NexGard Plus is right for your dog. And yeah, sorry to pile on, Cardinals fans, but Sonny Gray was the Dog of the Week over the weekend, and now it's just the Cardinals as a team. They lost a series to the Rockies. They got shut out at Coors Field. It was the first shutout for the Rockies since May 15th, 2024. First shutout in 220 games. The Cardinals were really making moves for a little while there, but now they're 1-5 coming out of the break, 3.5 back of the wild card spot. This probably makes it a little more likely that the Cardinals are going to be sellers at the deadline, right?
Yeah, I think so. And, I think this is what we look for coming out of the break is these teams that are on the fence is, that first week out, what happens? And a team here like the Cardinals that go 1-5, all of a sudden they're 3.5 games out of a wild card spot, which is not insurmountable. I think they might see the writing on the wall here, and they do have some assets I think that they can get a decent amount for in trade. So Ryan Helsley, Sonny Gray, even though he's coming off his worst start of the season. Nolan Arenado has still had a good year. So I understand there's like some money involved in that deal and things like that. But
good year defensively, maybe.
I could absolutely see them, selling off some pieces here, Scott. Like, who would be next up for saves if they trade Helsley? Is it Phil Maton? Is it, I don't know, Jojo Romero, someone else?
Yeah. Yes. The answer is yes. Maybe the lefty-righty tandem. Which would make Phil Maton the one to bet on. Look, not like he couldn't be moved either. So it's not like there is a surefire closer in waiting in that bullpen if they decided to sell and if they sold on him in particular. The good thing about the scenario I just laid out a minute ago, trading Arenado and installing Weatherholt is, I don't know that the Cardinals necessarily have to think they're out of the playoff race to do that. They would be happy to just get out of Nolan Arenado, and they have other alternatives for third base, even if they decide not to go with Weatherholt yet.
And Ryan Helsley's an impending free agent. Here's one problem in a potential Sonny Gray trade. He is either due $40 million for next year.
Whoa.
Technically, it's $35 million and a $5 million buyout for the 2027 season if they don't want to pick up his team option. Or it's either 1 year, $40 million basically, or 2 years, $65 million. That's going to really limit the market for Sonny Gray, who is a good pitcher, but I think Zach Wheeler is making $42 million a year. He's a little bit better than Sonny Gray. I know, it's only 1 year left for Sonny Gray, but that makes it a little iffy on finding a market for him. Arenado, they'll probably have to eat some money either way, I think, on that one. But yeah, that's the one thing with the Cardinals. But I do hope we get a Helsley trade. Seems pretty inevitable, but an Arenado trade, get him to a better park, and I would love to see JJ Weatherhold, who has not played third base as a professional. He's played almost exclusively shortstop, a little bit of second base, and I think long term he's viewed more as a second baseman. But maybe he'd be an option at second base. And that was the Dog of the Week segment, brought to you by Boehringer Ingelheim, the makers of NexGard Plus, Afoxolaner, Moxidectin, and Pyrantel chewable tablets. They provide next-level parasite protection against fleas, ticks, heartworm disease, roundworms, and hookworms, all in a tasty, beef-flavored soft chew. Used with caution in dogs with a history of seizures or neurologic disorders. Dogs should be tested for existing heartworm infection prior to starting a preventive. And ask your vet about NexGard Plus chews.
All right, let's hit our final break. And when we return, what happened to these 4 players? Guys that have been struggling lately for a long time this season. What is going on? We'll try to figure it out right after this.
Critics agree Landman is a hit.
We roll the dice one last time.
Men die. Oil companies don't.
Welcome back into Fantasy Baseball today. What happened to these 4 players? And I am going to begin with Max Fried. Now, he still has had an amazing season. I totally understand that. But the 4 starts in July have been really bad. 6.52 ERA, a 1.55 whip here, just 12 strikeouts to 9 walks over 19 and a third innings. Obviously was not great here against the Blue Jays. He threw just 59% of his pitches for strikes. He also had some comically bad defense behind him, which he kind of contributed to. It was a tough play, but overall gets charged with an error there. Guys, what's going on with Max Fried?
Well, I mean, a big part of it is he's had a blister issue.
That is a big part.
And I my understanding is it began before they let him sit out a turn in the rotation. Like, it was something he was dealing with for a while. So, it might be as simple as that. And while this secondary answer may not be a satisfying one, something had to happen to bring his numbers back down to earth. Like, he wasn't
back up to earth.
Back up to earth. Yeah. If you're talking about ERA, like it was unsustainable what he's doing. He's a good pitcher in like a, mid to high 2s ERA kind of way, not in a high 1s, even 2 ERA. Like that just wasn't going to last. He didn't transform. There wasn't some kind of underlying transformation that made that mathematically feasible. So whether it's the blister or not, something was going to happen to snap it back to reality.
Yep. Yeah, I think he's a 3-ish ERA pitcher to 90-ish ERA pitcher the rest of the way. I'm not really concerned as long as the thing with blisters is if you start changing your grip to try to account for it, does that exacerbate another issue? That would be the one concern I'd have if he continues to pitch through it. Assuming it's still an issue at all. I guess we don't know that for sure.
After the game, Max Fried said the blister wasn't an issue. There was an image during the game of his pinky bleeding, but apparently he said that was a cut from something else. I think a curveball that he threw or something, but that's
so he had a cut on his finger too. He had a blister and a cut.
The blister, I think, is on his index finger. The cut was on his pinky. So I don't know.
Cuts are bad too.
Yeah,
cuts may be worse than blisters.
I don't think they're related by any means, but yeah, it might just, I don't know, be a contributing factor, another excuse as to why Fried struggled here and has struggled in the month of July. What has happened to Yainer Diaz this year? He had 3 hits here on Wednesday, but overall he's hitting just 246. It's a 680 OPS. We know he very much so is in the mold of a Salvador Perez. He's very aggressive. He chases a lot of pitches. He doesn't walk very much, but he also doesn't strike out very much. He's been a big underperformer in terms of expected stats this season, but I know expected stats have just kind of been weird this year, and we've had a lot of underperformers. So I don't know. Is it pulled air rate, Scott? I don't know.
You want to take a guess whether his pull air rate is in the blue or the red? You talk about him underperforming his expected stats,
but it's better than it was last year.
I feel like it's always better for him, though.
Sure, but he's somebody who profiles to underperform his expected stats, and that that has been happening, right? It wasn't.
Yeah, that
just
happened
a one-year
last year to a
phenomenon.
certain extent, and it's definitely happening this year. There was a point a couple of weeks ago where I wrote something about like some of the biggest underperformers, and like I tried to come up with like a grand unifying theory of why certain guys are underperforming, because a lot of the biggest underperformers this season have been these really extreme plate discipline guys. Yainer Diaz, Salvador Perez up until the last like 10 games or so.
Jackson
Michael
bad plate
Harris.
discipline, you're saying?
Yeah, bad plate.
Okay.
Jackson Merrill, Nick Castellanos, Jake Berger. These guys are all, bottom 15 in chase rate. Luis Garcia from the Nationals as well. Like, those guys are all really disappointing, and they're all have really bad plate discipline. And maybe that's just they've gotten figured out. The fly in the ointment for this theory is that the worst plate discipline guy in baseball is also the biggest surprise superstar in baseball, Pete Crow Armstrong. And another guy who has bottom of the barrel plate discipline is Cedar Rafaela, who is also surprisingly having a great season. So that kind of screws that theory up. I don't know. It could still explain it, that why like he could just be going too far in the bad plate discipline, extreme plate discipline, if you want to put it that way, range. But I find that theory unconvincing, unfortunately.
And I think it could just be variance. I've long held the theory that every player has like a 60-point batting average range.
Oh yeah.
Like within 30 of their, they can hit 30 points higher than their career average. They can hit 30 points lower than their career average in a given year. And that's
without their skill set really changing.
Yeah. And so that's, Yainer Diaz is getting his 30-point lower scenario.
I talked about it the other day, but fully 1/3 of qualifiers last season had a 50-point swing in their WOBA from the first half to the second half. That's not even batting average. WOBA should be less noisy. So, yeah, I still think Yainer Diaz is going to be really good moving forward.
I think what makes it more frustrating for fantasy managers is that they hear us talk about all these other interesting catchers that are performing, right?
Yeah.
And Yainer Diaz is not one of them. So it's...
I share that as somebody who's invested in Adley Rutschman in a couple leagues. Obviously, he's been on the IL, but before that happened, and even while he's been on the IL, it's like, can I use this as an excuse to dump him and get Ivan Herrera or something? And
it was true of Salvador Perez up until 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
But that's the thing about these kind of players is we know how talented Yainer Diaz is. We know how talented Adley Rutschman is. What you don't want to do is drop them and have someone else benefit from when they finally start hitting like themselves.
And Salvador Perez is that perfect test case right there.
Yes, because people definitely wanted to and were probably dropping him in some leagues. And yeah, he's red hot right now. And that's the problem is you banked all that bad production. Now you're going to let someone else get the good stuff. That's always the problem.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to another name here. Jesus Luzardo, man. Another bad outing. 5 innings, 6 runs allowed, 5 walks, 7 strikeouts. All right, the whiffs were there, but he threw just 57% of his pitches for strikes. Velocity was up a little bit in this one, but obviously, didn't matter much. Sweeper was awesome. Didn't really have anything else working here. Even if you move past that 2-start stretch, which was just brutal, 20 earned runs over 2 starts, Luzardo has still allowed 4+ earned runs in 4 of his last 7 outings. And the walks, the hard contact have been major issues during the stretch. I just kind of wonder if maybe he's wearing down as well. He's up to 114 innings this season. Last year, he threw only 66 2/3. We know he has a very lengthy injury history as well. So I don't know exactly what's going on, but I don't think that we can start Jesus Luzardo anymore moving forward. I think we've got to bench him for a little bit here.
Yeah, most of the underlying numbers are still really good. 3 FIP.
Well, Chris, we don't play in a FIP league.
371 xERA. You know what? All right.
Two turns
people say
ago
like,
also.
these underlying stats, they aren't explain, or they're like, yeah, we're not trying to explain what has happened. We are trying to help you predict what is going to happen. And ERA is a really bad way to predict what is going to happen. It's like one of the least predictive stats in professional sports. It has very little predictive value. So, sorry, continue.
But his walk rate and inability to throw strikes, I mean, that kind of seems predictive, right? Like, he's missing his spots. He can't throw strikes.
He's not pitching as well.
He's getting hit really hard, you know?
He's not pitching as well. He had again, eliminating the 2 ridiculously bad starts where he was tipping pitches, just taking them completely out. He went from a 65% strike rate before them to, I think it's 61, 62% afterward. And you're going to get worse results when your strike percentage drops that much. But I will say on the subject of we just benched Luzardo for however long it takes to convince us he's okay. I don't think I'm there yet. I'm not saying you can't bench him, but just 2 turns ago, he threw 7 shutout innings with 7 strikeouts. Yeah. That's just 2 turns ago. So, and I mean, also,
even after those 2 starts where he was tipping his pitches, he came back with a 10 strikeout game.
Yeah, and 6 1-run innings. So he's had 3 great starts during this bad stretch that lead me to believe he hasn't totally lost it. Like, he's just not as sharp as he was before. And, you know, it depends how deep your pitching staff is. But I think in the typical scenario where, you know, you have kind of a league average staff, I don't know that you can afford to. I don't know that most of those people can afford to sit Luzardo.
Luzardo next week. Well, guess what? At the White Sox. So
is that good or bad?
I mean, they're
I don't know. The way that
they have been good since the All-Star break.
Right.
I don't think they're good.
I don't think,
but they have been
either.
I totally get what you guys are saying. I just feel like we're cherry picking a little bit here. If you look at the fantasy points in his starts, his last 7 starts, -2, 29.5, 1.5, -11, 30.5, 4.5, and 5.5.
Yeah, no,
that's awful. That is awful.
Yes, but again, I don't want to just repeat what I said, but those 3 really good starts tell me he hasn't totally lost it. And so again, we're not. Yes, if the supposition is that his next 8 starts will go exactly as his last 8 starts went, then okay, I don't want to start him for his next 8 starts because the cumulative score of his last 8 starts wasn't very good. But that's not how any of this works. So I am saying there's enough good in there to lead me to believe Luzardo might just be fine and hit a little bit of a rough patch here.
I agree.
I hope you guys are right, because I have a lot of Luzardo, but I am a little bit more open to benching him moving forward while he tries to figure this thing out. Last name here is Teoscar Hernandez, who had 3 hits here on Wednesday, but his overall numbers have taken a dive. So he suffered a hamstring injury back in May, and in 49 games since returning from that injury on May 19th, Teoscar Hernandez is hitting .209 with 5 homers, 1 steal, and a sub-600 OPS. That is a large majority of the season, where he's still hitting the ball hard, but it comes with a 28% strikeout rate, a 50% ground ball rate. Maybe he's just not right, but what do you guys think about Teoscar Hernandez and what's going on here?
He's been terrible.
Yeah, his underlying numbers for the season are worse. And over his last 100 plate appearances, his xWOBA is down to 289. Oof. That's really bad. I think he's not hurt would be a reasonable explanation. Or he's not healthy, excuse me. I think that would be that would make sense. I don't have a confirmation of that, but this whole Dodgers lineup outside of Shohei Ohtani kind of stinks right now.
It does.
I'm not even including Shohei Ohtani, who's been unbelievable. The last 30 days, they are 27th in WOBA in the majors.
Wow.
Like that's a pretty long time. You're talking about, I don't know, a couple 100 plate appearances for the team. I have no idea what number that would be. 1,800 play. I'm not. I shouldn't even guess.
Is it possible that they all just they all grow old together. But I don't mean that in the way people normally mean that phrase. Like they just
in the Notebook,
all their production all diminishes at the same time because they reach that cliff. And like Teoscar Hernandez, he's 32 himself. That's not as old as Freddie Freeman or Mookie Betts, but he's a free swinger, and a lot of times those guys drop off earlier. And so maybe those three were seeing legitimate decline from all three. Of course, you could make the injury excuse for Freeman. You could sort of make it for Betts. Like it's not an open and shut case, but it wouldn't surprise me if this is just the start of decline for all three of them. And then you got Max Muncy, who's probably been their third best hitter this. I'm forgetting Will Smith, I guess, but he was driving the lineup for a while there.
Yeah.
Max Muncy was, but he's pretty darn old too. And in fact, I think a lot of us assumed he was done prior to him wearing glasses and fixing everything. So it is funny, like this seeming juggernaut with the a lineup that seemed insurmountable. It's a very old lineup, and yeah, things could change quickly. We may be seeing it. As for Hernandez himself, he was so good in April that I kind of just stuck him 16th, 17th in my outfield rankings and didn't really think about it for a long time after that. I finally got him down to more like 30th now, seeing that he's basically done nothing since April.
Mm-hmm. So are you guys more open to, I guess, in shallower leagues, at least benching Teoscar Hernandez right now?
Sure.
In points leagues,
I think it's pretty easy calling points leagues.
Yeah. I actually think it's totally reasonable. And let me preface this by reminding everyone, I am not a Dodgers fan, but I think it could just be circumstantial for all of them, that it
could be.
Everyone here is just dealing with a different injury or something, right? Like Teoscar with the hamstring, Freeman with the ankle, and I think he hurt his quad in June or something like that too. And Mookie Betts with the stomach illness, and Tommy Edman had the whatever injury he suffered, the ankle, and then he hasn't been since he came back too. So it's just like, I think all of them are just banged up outside of Ohtani, and he's been great.
They are.
So
yeah. I mean, it's not. Look, even going back to what I said about Muncy, like everybody kind of assumed, okay, this guy's 36, he just doesn't have it anymore, and glasses changed everything. So like, we don't actually know what's going on.
Maybe
We're
Freddie
just making
Freeman needs glasses.
We're just making the best guess with the information available to us. And truthfully, if you're injecting me with truth serum, I would say my best guess is Freddie Freeman is probably going to be fine in the long run. Mookie Betts is probably a little bit diminished, but still more or less will be fine in the long run. And Teoscar Hernandez will be better the next 2 months than he's been the last 2 months. That's what the truth serum says. But I can see a worst case outcome. That seems plausible to me.
I think Teoscar Hernandez is probably the easiest to acquire right now, and I think I would actually try and buy low right now before. I assume many trade deadlines are approaching right now, so maybe just try to buy really low on Teoscar Hernandez. Let's run through some waiver wire options here from Wednesday, and we already spoke about Brandon Walter, who's up near the top of the list of waiver wire pitchers. Some shallow league names, anything here? Brandon Pfaadt turned in another solid outing, this time against the Astros, 5 1/3 innings, 2 runs, 5 strikeouts. He had 11 whiffs on 89 pitches. Continues to tinker with the pitch mix, more sinkers, more cutters. Maybe it's helped him. Last 3 starts, 1.77 ERA, 0.74 whip for Brandon Pfaadt. Zach Eflin, solid in his return at the Guardians, 5 innings, 2 runs, 5 strikeouts to just 1 walk. Slade Ciccone turned in a quality start on the other side against the Orioles, 6 innings, 2 runs, 2 walks, 2 strikeouts. Anything to see here with Ciccone, Eflin, and Brandon Pfaadt?
I don't understand fantasy baseball players' obsession with Brandon Pfaadt. This guy has had like a few 4-start stretches over 3 years. He's been awful all season. I guess he's had a nice 3-start stretch now, so he's due for one more good one before it falls apart. Like he has a 4.97 career ERA. We're 3 years in. Why is he 74% rostered still? I don't understand. Like he was like an okay prospect, but we're not talking about like a top 10 prospect in baseball. He was like a fringe top 100 guy, if I'm remembering correctly. And he's been mostly really bad at the major league level. He has these like stretches or starts. I know he had like 3 or 4 10 strikeout games last year, but like overall there's nothing impressive in the skill set for Brandon Pfaadt. He has a 6.22 expected ERA. He has been lucky to have a 4.76 ERA this season. I do not understand why this guy is 74% rostered. There are like, I don't know, 70 pitchers I'd rather have than Brandon Pfaadt at this point.
70. Like that's where you rank him, is like outside of the top 70.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't see much reason to rank him much higher than that.
Who was it I was arguing with before the season about this? I got into a heated argument with someone. I'm guessing it wasn't Chris based on his reaction here. But like I called Pfaadt a bust, and somebody really didn't like that, and it got pretty heated. I can't remember who it was. Was it like the Welsh? Was it a
only
guest?
one other person?
Yeah, it was either
No,
me
no,
or Frank.
it may have been a guest. I don't know that it was you, Frank.
I think I might have wrote him up as a sleeper. I don't know. I kind of like peripherally liked Brandon Pfaadt. I don't know that I was that adamant about it, but sounds like something I could have done.
Maybe.
It's a possibility.
I don't feel like you argue very much, Frank.
Yeah, maybe
You're too nice for that.
Maybe I need to change that,
dirt.
Scott. I got to start, getting after it here.
Maybe.
But, all right. Anything with Eflin or Ciccone?
Eflin was throwing his curveball more, I think, which is usually a good thing. I especially when he was good in 2023, it was a big deal that his curveball was 2023, right? Yeah. Was his best pitch. So maybe there's something there. He was not very good on his rehab assignment. He was pretty bad before his injury. So I'm not getting too excited about Eflin yet, but it was good to see him pitch well. And then, I don't know, Slade Ciccone kind of feels like a Brandon Pfaadt clone to me.
I don't think the pitcher is very good, but if these are actually his matchups next week versus Colorado in Cleveland and against the Twins.
Yeah, that's fine.
Could work, maybe.
He's already 53% rostered, so it's not like a profile with Slade Ciccone where I feel like I want to pound the table and say this guy needs to be 80% rostered. Like, if you have him, hang on to him. If you're in a points league and you need a 2-star pitcher, it's okay to chase him. But
yeah, he's not in the
certainly rather have Brandon Walter, who's
he's not
less than him.
And less that, yeah, not on the level of Walter for me, but he is interesting enough that I would like people to leave this podcast with a positive impression of Ciccone. He hit both of his breaking balls have very high whiff rates. Mm-hmm. So that's probably the most interesting thing I could say about him. He's a guy most people listening hadn't heard of even a month ago. So that says a lot on its own. There is an underlying skepticism that is deserved there, but I'm not totally dismissive of Slade Ciccone, and I think based on those matchups you listed, Frank, he's going to be among my streamer pitchers for the next couple weeks.
All right, a couple more waiver wire pitchers in slightly deeper leagues. Mike Soroka took a tough luck loss against the Reds, 5 2/3 innings, 1 run, 6 strikeouts. His velocity way down in this start, but managed to get some good results. Bailey Falter, a great start against the Tigers, 7 innings, 1 run, 8 strikeouts to 0 walks. And Chris Paddock, where did this come from? Great start at that vaunted Dodgers lineup, 6 innings, 1 run, 8 strikeouts to 0 walks for him. Any of these names matter? Paddock, Bailey Falter, and Mike Soroka.
Well, I don't know if you've heard, but the Dodgers lineup's pretty bad right now, so I think that explains Chris Paddock having a good start.
White Sox are great. Dodgers are terrible.
If not for the velocity being way down, which is alarming for Mike Soroka, I would have been fully ready to say I'd rather have him than Brandon Pfaadt, Slade Ciccone, a couple other guys, Zach Eflin. I think he's pitched much better than his actual results so far. But obviously, if his fastball velocity is down 3 miles per hour, I can't really make the case for going out and adding Mike Soroka right now.
It is just one start, though,
with
the velocity, so I don't.
And the results were okay, yeah.
It's only really troubling when it becomes a trend.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's quickly run through some waiver wire hitters here. And Chris, Royce Lewis, I don't know, might be turning things up here. 2 for 2 with a walk and his 5th home run last 4 games. He has 7 hits, 3 homers, 6 RBI, and 1 steal. So, look, we've talked about him before. Maybe he's finally healthy. We know there's upside here. We need third base replacements. You lost Isak Paredes. You lost Alec Boehm. Royce Lewis could still be out there. A couple other names here. Ezekiel Tovar showing off some power since returning. 5 games in the second half. He's got 6 hits and 2 home runs. Was a productive player last year. And Matt Shaw continues to impress over the past week. 6 games here in the second half so far. He's 9 for 19 with 3 homers, 2 steals, 1421 OPS. Now's your chance, Chris. Matt Shaw, Tovar, Royce Lewis.
Yeah, Royce Lewis, I think it's very simple. We've seen enough upside from him that the fact that he looks locked in right now, I think he needs to be universally rostered just in case he goes on another one of those tears the rest of the way. He might get hurt again. I know that's what you're going to say, but like, if he's healthy, he's been mostly very good at the major league level. Even if he's not a superstar, he should be very useful. Ezekiel Tovar, I'm kind of surprised at how low his roster rate has remained since his return. I know he hasn't done a ton, and it's only been a handful of games, but he was like a top 125 pick coming into the season. I thought he was overdrafted.
In Roto.
Yeah, but I thought he was overdrafted, but I'm surprised that there has been... I know his overall numbers are not very good, but he had a 953 in OPS in May. He was starting to turn things around. So I do think Ezekiel Tovar's roster rate is probably a little low. His expected stats are terrific. All the trend stuff looks good, in his return. So I think he's a little under-rostered. And then Matt Shaw, we were all high on him coming into the season. He has 3 home runs in his last 5 games, and I want to buy into it, but his biggest problem all season has been an inability to impact the ball. And despite 3 home runs in his past 5 games, there's really not a lot going on in the quality of contact. For some reason, his home run today is not showing up on StatCast. It wasn't tracked. It looked like it was about 380 feet from where it landed over the fence, which means he still has not hit a home run over 400 feet among his 5 homers. His home run exit velocities, the previous 2 were like 99 and 102 miles per hour. I know you don't get more points if it's hit hard or hit far, but when we're trying to predict moving forward, if you just don't have power, it makes it hard to buy into suddenly becoming a power hitter. I still like Matt Shaw in the long run, but I haven't seen enough in this little run in the underlying data to think that he's fixed his problems, unfortunately.
All right, I mentioned up at the top that it was a fun night for the White Sox future. Kyle Teal had a huge game, 4 for 5 with his first career home run. He is hitting .277 with a 763 OPS early on. Average exit velocity looks pretty good here for Kyle Teal, but as we've talked about all season, there's no shortage of interesting catchers. He's 22% rostered, and I guess a name you still could look at in 2 catcher leagues. And Colson Montgomery, 2 for 5 with a double and his second homer in as many nights, 2 nights back-to-back here. 5 RBI for him. And, he's holding his own. Obviously, 2 great games in a row influenced the numbers quite a bit. But the underlying plate discipline stuff is very scary early on for Colson Montgomery.
Yes, but not as bad as it could be. I mean, this was a guy who was struggling to get to even a 30% strikeout rate in the minors. And it was so bad, he got sent to the complex league. Consensus top 50 prospect, Colson Montgomery, for a long time. But he was struggling so badly to make contact early on that he had to go to the complex league. And he came back, it was better, but it was only like 28%. The fact he's exceeding that in the majors, just a 26% strikeout rate, is surprising in a good way, especially given the difficulty curve for hitters in recent years. I've talked about it a lot. Like I feel like you can't really make a judgment on these guys until they get 2 months of uninterrupted play. So to see the impact Colson Montgomery is making right away, I wouldn't have predicted it. these two balls, the double and the home run here on Wednesday, are his two hardest hit balls so far. The double 112 miles per hour, the home run 109.8. I mean, those are he really whacked them good, and not the issue Matt Shaw is having. So if he can keep that strikeout rate between 25 and 30%, he's a guy who walks at a nice rate. It's been 10% in the majors. I think just because he took such a difficult developmental path, we're going to be on the edge with Colson Montgomery for a long time, but there is clearly talent there. And I could see him finishing strong enough that we like him going into next season.
I do not disagree with a word that you said, Scott.
Mm-hmm.
If he can keep his strikeout rate in this range, I'm just going to point out that his zone contact and swinging strike rate profile like a hitter that's more like a 35% strikeout rate kind of guy.
It feels very Zach Galifi to me.
Yeah. So if he could somehow, keep this trick up where he's only striking out 25, 26%, sure. But it's, with a 19% swinging strike rate, I just don't think that's likely. So happy to be wrong. We'll see what Colson Montgomery can do moving forward. Let's wrap up with some leftovers here. And hey, real quick thought on each of these starting pitchers. Lucas Giolito ran into a brick wall at the Phillies. 4 innings, 5 runs allowed with 4 homers allowed. What do we think here? Giolito, he was great before this. So I don't know. I don't want to bury the guy, but he kind of did
skeptical.
The Giolito thing here.
Yeah. 2 bad starts in a row. I remain skeptical.
I think his 3.97 ERA is basically right on line. His xERA is about a run worse than that, though, so there could still be room for more regression here.
Sean Manaea picked up his first win of the season against the Angels. 5 innings, 1 run, 5 strikeouts, did have 12 whiffs on 82 pitches, but the velocity way down in this one, and it has trended down in each of his 3 starts or 3 outings. Some of those were relief outings. Scott, what are we thinking here, Sean Manaea?
Well, this was the most extreme drop in velocity, and I will note, I don't know if you remember, but I pointed out that on his rehab assignment, his velocity was down a couple miles per hour too. And so I was relieved when he came to the majors and that didn't seem to be an issue anymore. But here it shows up in his 3rd outing. So, yeah, I mean, kind of like Mike Soroka, got a good result. I think especially because Manaea is kind of a new pitcher. He had the 12 starts last year where he was throwing from the much lower arm angle, and now he has 3 more. So we're talking about a 15 start sample. We don't know exactly how much velocity he needs to be successful like this, or what even success looks like. And so you have to keep that in mind. I'm curious to see how the velocity looks next time. Maybe it bounces back and all systems go, but it's not something you want to see.
I think it's not actionable either way,
Yeah.
Like nobody's going to trade for Sean Manaea. I don't think you can drop him. So I think you just hold him and hope it's good.
Sandy Alcantara had one of his better starts of the season up against the Padres. 7 innings, 4 hits, 1 unearned run with 4 strikeouts to 0 walks, but still gave up 10 hard hits in this game. 91.6 average exit velocity. Chris, I know the final line looks great. You don't want to take anything away from that, but I still remain a little bit, I don't know, not overly enthused based on how much hard contact and lack of whiffs were here.
Yeah, I don't think we've seen enough from Sandy Alcantara to be optimistic at this point. We'll take any positive signs, and this was a pretty good start, but it wasn't a dominant start. He didn't miss a ton of bats. He didn't get a lot of strikeouts. Like you said, he got hit pretty hard. It's a step in the right direction, but it's certainly not enough to say that Sandy Alcantara is back and that he's, a must-start guy moving forward. He's not even close to that.
Mm-hmm. Judgment call here. Not judgment call, I guess, just whatever. Call. Make a prediction. Does Sandy Alcantara get traded by the deadline?
I'm going to say yes.
I'm going to say no.
I'm leaning no as well, but It would make for a fun deadline if he is.
I mean, look, I made the case the other day about Edward Cabrera that the Marlins shouldn't trade him because he's pitching too well. And I'm also making the argument that the Marlins shouldn't trade Sandy Alcantara because he's pitching too poorly. So don't listen to me.
I'm saying yes just because I think the need for starting pitcher is so great and the amount out there is so low that the market factors are working in favor of the Marlins trading Alcantara.
And I would guess most teams have a model that suggests that despite how bad he's been so far, he should be much better moving forward. And that's what teams care about. Like, this is not, 1997. They're not like, oh, he has a 6 ERA, we can't trade for him. Like, I think teams are aware that Sandy Alcantara is probably better than he has been so far.
Yeah, the stuff plus for Sandy Alcantara 106 this season, which is still down a little bit from where he's at in his career, but it's basically just been control has been a pretty massive problem here for.
And it's been better lately.
Sandy all season. Some hitting leftovers. Rafael Devers had his first big game with the Giants, 3 for 5 with a double dong and 4 RBI. O'Neal Cruz had himself a nice game, 2 for 3 with 2 steals, but I hadn't realized he had an awesome April. It's a sub 700 OPS with a 35% strikeout rate since the beginning of May. So
strikeout rate's gone way in the wrong direction.
Like Teoscar Hernandez, it's been a long time that O'Neal Cruz has kind of been just actively bad. Pete Alonso broke out of his slump with a long home run, 114 mile per hour exit velocity, 439 feet for him. Vinny Pasquantino, Vinny P, baby, had himself a big game, 3 for 4 with a double dong, 4 RBI. Awful April. He's kind of done the reverse O'Neal Cruz. He's been great since the start of May. Salvador Perez continued his huge July where he's hitting 368 with 9 home runs and a 1264 OPS. Christian Walker, small sample, but showing some signs here early on in the second half, has multiple hits in 4 of his last 5 games. The one where he didn't have multiple hits, he had a home run. So maybe Christian Walker finally coming around. Geraldo Perdomo had a 4-hit game. Bryce Terang clearly was listening last night. Went 3 for 5 with 2 runs and 2 RBI. Aaron Judge hit another homer. Shohei Ohtani hit another homer. Corey Seager hit another homer. And Junior Caminero also hit another homer.
Caminero! Ha! Ha, Caminero!
Some pitching leftovers here. I'll just say some names. If you have any thoughts, go for it. Seth Lugo, Chris Bassett, Dylan Cease. Anything stand out from those 3?
I'm not allowed to talk about Seth Lugo anymore.
No, you aren't.
Nothing that interesting.
Yeah. Dylan Cease, I mean, it's just...
I can't wait to draft him as like the 27th pitcher next year.
Yeah, we were talking about that at the game today. I know this is not how you're supposed to play fantasy, so everyone with a level head just do exactly the opposite of what I'm about to say, but as a scorned Dylan Cease drafter this year, I just don't think I'll be able to bring myself to draft him again next year.
I'm going to click that in the 8th round, 9th round every single time. It's gonna be
you're going to reap all the rewards. And I'll draft him again the following year when he has an awesome season.
I think we're getting ahead of ourselves even with that. Like it's distinctly possible Cease is the best pitcher in baseball for the next 2 months.
His peripherals are all still really good. Like everything about how we typically value pitchers and try to predict their performance moving forward suggests that Dylan Cease is still very good.
Emotional Frank has had enough of Dylan Cease. So I'll just put that out there.
Right.
Call to the bullpen here for the Marlins. Calvin Fauché got the final 5 outs for his 9th save. Ronnie Enriquez was unavailable. For the Mets, Edwin Diaz recorded the final 4 outs for his 21st save. For the Astros, Josh Hader struck out 2 for his 27th. For the D-backs, Kevin Ginkel got the 9th inning with the game tied. He gave up a run on 3 hits, took his 4th loss of the season. The D-backs bullpen just continues to be an absolute mess. For the Dodgers, no Tanner Scott here. Kirby Yates entered in the 8th inning with a 1-run lead. He walked 3 in a row. He was relieved by Alex Vesia, who induced a double play, but then also allowed a single. 2 runs were charged to Kirby Yates. The Dodgers did wind up winning that game because on the other side, for the Twins, Yohan Duran was unavailable. Griffin Jacks got the 9th inning with a 1-run lead. He gave up 2 runs on 2 walks and 2 hits, took his 5th blown save and 5th loss of the season. For the Guardians, Emmanuel Clase struck out 2 for his 23rd save. For the Rangers, Robert Garcia struck out 2 for his 8th save. For the Red Sox, how about this? Aroldis Chapman was brought into the 7th inning with 2 outs. Runner on second, 1-run lead. Biggest spot in the game, Kyle Schwarber up. So I get it, lefty on lefty. Chapman did get Schwarber out. He stayed on for the 8th, where he gave up a game-tying home run to JT Realmuto. The Red Sox would eventually win, and it was Brennan Bernardino who closed it out in extras for his first save of the season. And for the White Sox, somebody named Dan Altavia got the final inning of work, and he picked up his 2nd save of the season. So don't think the White Sox bullpen really matters all that much. To stream or not to stream for Thursday, just 5 games on the schedule. We have Charlie Morton at the Guardians, Logan Allen up against the Orioles, Eric Lauer at the Tigers. That's probably it.
I don't mind Morton. I know his last start was pretty bad, but that one's fine. I just don't love the matchup for Lauer. I know he's been very good. I still don't quite buy it.
The Tigers lineup is slumping quite a bit right now.
Yeah, that's fair.
Allen is decent. He isn't decent. He has been decent, and the Orioles matchup is pretty good.
Yeah.
So I don't really want to stream any of them, but Allen is probably my favorite for Thursday.
I love that after, 2 years of doing this segment, Scott still feels the need to preface every one of his answers with, I don't really like these guys. I wouldn't play them. But if you want to play them,
hey,
I think everyone knows by now, Scott, that you don't actually like these pitchers.
No, they don't.
People still get mad about the streamers sometimes, though.
I mean, these are the players we have to choose from. So, I mean, if you want to play this game, it is a dangerous one. So,
just
know what you're getting yourself into.
Yes, exactly.
Should I just create like a disclaimer button? Just press it whenever we start the segment, like disclaimer. We don't like any of these pitchers, but you can use them anyway.
Well, sometimes we do like them. Rarely.
Very rarely. Very rarely. Kind of like on Friday. I don't know that we'll like many of these. Emmett Sheehan, we like the pitcher, but he's at the Red Sox. Brian Bayo.
Just don't know if he's going to pitch deep enough.
Bayo facing the Dodgers. I don't know. Their lineup is terrible right now. Adrian Hauser up against the Cubs. Don't love that. Jeffrey Springs at the Astros. Zebby Matthews, interesting pitcher, gets the Nationals. I don't know.
I like them more than Thursday, but I still don't like them.
It's better talent.
Brian Bayo and Zebby Matthews would be my top 2 choices.
I agree.
All right, we're going to wrap there for Scott and Chris. I am Frank. Thanks as always for tuning in to Fantasy Baseball today. Please make sure to follow and leave a 5-star rating on Apple or Spotify, and we will be back again tomorrow. Bye.